Hello learners, I am Dr. Rajkumar Bharadwaj, presently working as Assistant Professor in the Department of Library and Information Sciences at Central University of Punjab. So, today we are going to discuss a part 2 of alerting services, and precisely we will discuss the selective dissemination of informations. So, Ranganathan has given us a 5 laws, and these 5 laws are actually the Bible of library information science. So, we have to satisfy the user's needs, and these 5 laws gives us a guidelines, gives us the lights how to achieve the user satisfaction at a highest level. And in this concern, achieving the user satisfactions, we provide lot of variety of services in the libraries, and alerting services is one such aspect which are very vital to achieve the highest satisfaction of the users. So, if you think about the library, there are two aspects of the library working. One aspect is you need to connect with the users, and other aspect is that you need to educate the users. These two aspects are very, very important. And how to connect the user and how to educate the user, not just about the resources what the library has, but also what is the new resources published in their domain, so that they can have a better research and development activities. So, in this concern, we are trying to teach you that these are two services, current awareness service and the selective dissemination of information, which are very vital. In fact, the SDI itself is a current awareness service, and in the part 1 we discuss what is current awareness service and various forms of current awareness service. And in this lecture, we will discuss how to provide the selective dissemination of informations, what are the different aspects of the service, what are different advantages and disadvantages, and how to identify the correct selective dissemination of information service. So, we will also look into the characteristics part of it. So, what I would like to tell you that SDI is a mechanism where a user can expect to receive regular notifications of new literature matching their information needs. And H. P. Luhan in 1961 described the selective dissemination of information. In that he says that selective dissemination of information is that service within an organization which concern itself with machine assisted channeling of new item of information from wherever source to those points within the organization where the probability of usefulness in connection with the current work or interest is high. So, that is the definition actually, and I unquote here. Another scholars, they also defined what is the selective dissemination of information, and the famous scholars Strauss, Shreve and Brown describe it that it is a refinement of current awareness idea that is actually designed to serve the individual scientist directly. So, that is how they describe it, and undoubtedly it is a current awareness service, but there are various difference between the current awareness and SDI. Current awareness is general in nature. However, the SDI which we are discussing today, it is a personalized in nature, it is a personalized service, because we look into the different aspect of user requirement. So, here we are not sending the information to the all user, we here are defining each and individual user's requirement, and accordingly we are describing the information which they needed. So, that is another aspect of selective dissemination of information. So, a variety of information sources we need to consult while providing such service, and if you go into the historical account of it, the SDI was actually started by Hans Peter Luhan's paper. The concept itself was described that how the computerized SDI should be provided, and Hans Peter Luhan in his paper entitled A Business Intelligence System, which was first published, describe of a system that used computer for the SDI. So, that is how he described it, and Luhan, H.P. Luhan included SDI service as part of his design for a larger business intelligence system, which also included information retrieval and a communication facility. So, in fact, Luhan was the first person who implemented in 1959 at the Advanced System Development Divisions of the IBM Corporation at New York. So, if you look into the aspect of SDI, which given by the H.P. Luhan, it hardly used by anyone. It was only the IBM actually who implemented it the first, and we call it a SDI 1 service. Okay. So, that is how it's the concept was started. So, SDI meant for individual user because it is a personalized service, and mainly it is used by the specialists. Those are the expert in the domain that is meant for them. It is not for the common man, it is not for the general user, it is for the specialist user who need a special kind of information for their research and development activity. So, mainly it is actually exclusively restricted to the area of the user concerns. So, how it is connected to that we will also discuss. So, if you will go into the aspect of how it is personalized service and how it is only to the area of a user's concern, because here we are matching the user's requirement with the document which we have in the library, and accordingly after the matching we provide the service. So, it involves not just identifying what the user want, not just to describe the user requirement, but also we need to find out what are those sources which contain that kind of information. So, it involves not just identifying, but also screening of documents, selecting the information, so that specific research need of each user or a group of user can be fulfilled. So, that is one aspect of it, and that is very important. And consequently, you can say that user can himself abreast of the latest development in the field, that if you will provide the appropriate selected dissemination information service, then it will save not just the time of the user, but also they will be very convenient for the users to identify the relevant content which are published in their domain. So, these are some of the things. If it can also relate to the channeling of new item of information from various sources to those points within the organization where they can usefully serve someone interest. So, these are actually the aspect of selective dissemination of information, and I am sure now you have understood what this concept is all about and how these are related to the part 1 alerting service, that is cache. So, there is a subtle difference between the two service, but we need to understand how to provide the current awareness service. What are the different characteristics of current awareness service that we need to understand. So, if you look into the slide, there are various characteristics of current awareness service, and first of all I would like to say that it is an individual personalized service that we have already discussed, and it answers to a specific user's request. That is another aspect of it, because if you look into the current awareness service, we do not answer to the quest of the user. However, in selective dissemination of information, we not just provide them information, but we try to fulfill the user's quest. So, that is also very important, and that you can also note down that this is also one of the characteristics of a selective dissemination of information. Apart from that, another very important characteristics of the selective dissemination of information which you can note, and which is very important, through which you can distinguish between current awareness service and SDI, that is the feedback mechanism. Because when we provide the selective dissemination information, we continue seek the feedback of the user, whether that fulfill your requirement or not, because that is a key of the selective dissemination of information. Because if you not take the feedback, then how you will understand whether the user requirement are being fulfilled or not. So, on the basis of feedback, we try to readjust our service, and that is also one of the characteristics of the SDI service, and we can ascertain here that the feedback is very important and vital point in the SDI service. Apart from that, SDI service also help the users to follow the update in their field of studies. So, that is also very important, because here we are making the service personalized. We are customizing the service as per the requirement of the user, and that is why user can easily follow what is happening in their domain, and sometime not just the main domain, but the allied domain also user can define in the requirement, and accordingly the library can alter the service and they can provide the selective dissemination of information which match, which not just fulfill the main subject, but also the allied subject information requirement also the user requirement can be fulfilled. So, these are some of the aspect of some of the characteristics you can say. But another aspect of the selective dissemination, another characteristic is that there is no provision of scanning as a service, because here we are sending the document which are pinpointed to the requirement of the user. We are not sending all the document, we are only selecting, we are refining the documents whatever we receive, and accordingly which match to the user requirement, those we are sending. So, it is not just a browsing service, it is not just a scanning service unlike the cache, it is a service which provide the pinpointed information, which provide the precise information. So, that is also one of the major characteristics of selective dissemination of information. So, now come to the point of why do we need and what are the different objectives of selective dissemination of information. So, as we all the service, this all the alerting service, this service is also update the user about the latest document matching his area of interest. But this SDI actually saves lot of time the user in identifying the relevant content, which so that the research and development activities of the user can be fostered. So, these are some of the needs and objective which we have defined here. So, there I am trying to simplify this concept, because when we will give the personalized service, when we will try to give a pinpointed service. So, what will happen? It will not just save the time of the user, because he would not be needed to scan lot of document. So, he can also get the information precisely in a shortest possible time. So, these are the things which are the need and objective of the SDI service. So, now come to the point of what are the different advantages. So, there are variety of advantages such as customized service which fulfill the individual's users requirement, and it is also the optimum utilization of resources can also be achieved through this. So, because we are sending the document to those persons to whom they will be most useful. So, that is another aspect of it, that is another advantage of selective dissemination of information. Here actually the scanning time of the reader is reduced to nil, because we are sending only the selected information. So, obviously, the reader times which they are actually wasting in browsing lot of document, that can also be minimized, and it requires no such strategies, because we are library staff on the behalf of the user is sending the document which match their research and development area, and it requires no such strategy as such. Apart from that, it is a quicker compared to other such as indexing and abstracting services, and various other advantages you can say it satisfy the users most. It will obviously it satisfy the user most, because we are sending the document pinpointed information which match to their requirement exactly. So, in fact, when we prepare the what kind of document user need, we ask the user what are their area of interest, what are their allied area of interest, and we try to use the controlled vocabulary to identify their area, to identify their object, and accordingly which keywords, which controlled vocabulary we have used in defining the user interest, that we use and identify the relevant content which we receive in the library. So, that is how it works. So, another aspect is what are different disadvantages. Like advantages, it has lot of disadvantages also. Sometimes it is difficult to pinpointedly ascertain the interest and the requirement of the user, because sometimes user are working on multi-disciplinary projects and multiple area they have been working. So, it is really difficult to identify in which area user need information, what kind of information user needs. So, providing pinpointed information sometimes become cumbersome for library staff. So, that is one aspect. Another aspect is, since we have been using computer in the SDI service, so personal touch with the user sometimes is missing. So, that is another major drawback I would say of SDI service. In fact, all the computerized service That is a major disadvantages are we are actually losing the self touch between the users and the connection between the users and the library staff. So, that personal connection is very important, and sometime through the personal connection we can also ascertain their expectations, certain satisfaction level of the users. So, that is one of the problem of using computerized SD service, that there is a disconnections between the personal touch of the users and library staff. So, that is one aspect of it. Another is users sometimes do not get notifications to respond to all notifications. So, that is another aspect. User get information, but they do not respond to the staff, whether they are satisfied, whether they have received the information or not. So, that is another aspect of it, that another drawback of it, that we do not get information as library staff, do not get information whether the content have been reached to the user or not. So, consequently, because of the poor feedback system, the efficiency and the effectiveness of the service sometimes compromised. So, that is another drawback of it. Another drawback is the lack of staff or less number of staff is another problem, because some of the library they have a less number of staff, and in some of the library you will not find the trained staff who can really provide the selected dissemination of information to the user group, because in the users are working in a multidisciplinary area. So, we need a trained professional staff who can understand the requirement, who can understand the such system of resources, and who can deliver the pinpointed information. So, however, that is lacking in some of the libraries. Number of staff is less, and number of trained professional staff is also not there. So, that is another, and consequently we would not be able to provide the service if the staff problem exists in the library. So, now come to the point of guidelines. What are different guidelines of SDI service? So, you can see in this on the screen these are 4 points which are really important while providing the selected dissemination of information. First aspect is acquiring users profile and storing them. So, this is one aspect that we need to understand, and we need to acquire user profile and we need to store them. Afterwards, we need to process the material which are coming in the library, and we need to match the user profile with the document profile, and accordingly we need to handle the cards. So, that is one aspect, that is a major guidelines, and you can see on the screen that is the figure which shows you the flow chart of a selected dissemination of information. And in this flow chart there are various components. One component is a user, another component is a documents. So, here first of all we will try to assess the user's requirement, the second step, and afterwards assessing the user requirement we will go after the analysis. But before that, going to the user assessment and the analysis, what we need to do first aspect is prepare the user profile. If you would not be able to prepare the user profile appropriate, then lot of aspect will be missing. So, we need to understand here through this graph, we will try to clarify you that user preparing a up to date user profile is very important. So, afterwards we need to how you will prepare a user profile, that is also major aspect. So, we need to sometime interview user, sometime we can prepare a proforma through which we can get the answer of the user, that is address, its contact number or the area of interest. Obviously, you can also ask the school in which the user is studying or teaching, and then we need to define the area of the user's interest using the controlled vocabulary, like we have a subject heading Library of Congress and CS list. So, and various other controlled vocabulary. Afterwards, we need to define the area of interest in a keywords with the subject heading where we need to define. And once we do that, we need to analyze the interest of the users, and afterwards we will have a ready made user profile. Okay, we will have a user profile, and that will define that what kind of information the users need. So, in fact, while preparing the user profile, you can also ask the users that what kind of information you need, like do you need only the video contents, do you need only the text contents, that kind of filtering is also possible, but generally we do not do that. We only define the user's area of working through the controlled vocabulary, and then we match with the different formats of content which we receive inside the library. And another aspect of this providing the SDI service is prepare the document profile. You can see below the document profile is also there, and afterwards we receive the document, then we analyze the content, and then we prepare the document profile and what kind of a document we have. Okay. And obviously, when we prepare the document profile when we receive the document in the library, we also try to use the controlled vocabulary. In the knowledge organization, we use and we try to give keywords, subject headings to define the document profile, preparing catalog, or entering the details of the document in the ILMS. And then if we have these profiles are ready, then we try to match these two profiles, user profile and the document profile. You can see on the screen, this matching is done once this user profile and the document profiles are ready. So, afterwards whatever content match user profile when the match with the document profile, those documents we send it to the users through various notifications. And what happens if users are not satisfied with the informations which we are sending through the library? So, then what we do? We try to assess the user's requirement, we analyze it, and if you find there is some kind of a gap, we try to fill that gap after the readjustment in the form of modifying the user profile, in the form of modifying the document profile, and that is how the cycle goes on. And when we provide the service after updating the user profile and after updating the document profile, then we try to satisfy the user requirement. So, this is the flow chart actually depicts how the SDI service can be provided in the library and what are the workflow of the SDI service. So, now come to the another aspect, that how to evaluate now the SDI service. We have started the SDI service, you have understood the various aspect of it, its characteristics, its advantages, its disadvantages, and how workflow also you now understood. But how to evaluate whether the SDI service is effective or not. So, there are various methods of evaluating the service. So, one aspect is that you need to understand how current is the information, whether the information is current or not. If the information is current, then you can say it's a perfect, it's a fine. So, currency is one aspect of not just evaluating the service, but also not just evaluating the SDI, but also the current awareness service. So, currency is very important. Apart from that, cost is also important, that whether it's involve lot of cost. If the lot of cost is involved, then obviously we need to alter, we need to modify our service. So, effectiveness we can also determine using the cost. Apart from ease of use, like if you are providing the service which is difficult to use, that is also determine that your service is not effective. So, the service which you are providing should be user friendly, it should be very convenient for the user to use the service, and the document delivery, what kind of a document delivery mechanism you have been using in SDI service, that is also determines its effectiveness. And obviously, how comprehensive is your information, that is also the success mantra of SDI service. So, comprehensive, your service should be comprehensive, and that is why Ranganathan has said, when you provide a service, it should be pinpointed, it should be exhaustive, and it should be expeditiously. That three aspects you need to keep in mind, and that while providing the SDI service you should keep in mind. So, now come to the point of what are the difference between the current awareness service and SDI. These are two different service, but some of you might be confused how to ascertain that which is CAS and which is SDI, because if you do not understand clearly, then how you will provide these service in your library when you will start working. So, as a student or those who are already working, how you will distinguish between those two services. So, one aspect is that CAS does not answer any specific query. So, that you need to remember. When we are providing current awareness service, we are not actually answering the user query. User might have a different quest, but here we are not answering the quest. We are not try to answer the specific query, because we are sending the documents in a bulk, and we are not sending the document. In fact, we are only sending the bibliographical detail. Unlike the SDI, where we are also sending sometimes the documents. Okay. So, that is one aspect that we are not going to answer the user's query, we are only just updating the user what are the new content have published in the domain. Okay. So, and current awareness service is actually a scanning service, because here we are giving the documents detail to the user, so that they can identify the relevant content matching their user requirement. However, in SDI service we are only sending those documents which pinpointed answer their request, with pinpointed fulfill their requirement. So, this is one aspect, that is how you can distinguish between two services. Another aspect is speed, currency and ease, major consideration in the current awareness service. Speed, because as and when we receive the document, as and when the documents are current, we send it to the user, because in the current awareness service we are not sending the old document, we are not sending the document which published 5 years ago or 10 years ago, we are only sending those documents which recently published, which are up to dated, and we also keep in mind the speed. So, as and when we receive the document, we send it to the user. Apart from that, cache is a generic in nature, means it is a general service, we are sending to the entire group, we are not making we are not sending email or the service to the individual user, we are sending in the group. So, current awareness service, that is why we consider it as a generic in nature. However, SDI is not generic in nature, it is a specific in nature, because we are here trying to identify the specific requirement of the user and accordingly sending the information. So, it is a specific in nature, however, the cache is generic in nature. And in the cache, here information we are providing at a bibliographical level, while detail may be mentioned in SDI, that is another difference, and that also you can use it when you distinguish between two services. Another aspect that you might have noticed in the workflow when we discuss, that no matching of profile and feedback is done in the current awareness service. We do not prepare the document profile, we do not prepare the user profile, and we do not do any kind of matching, and accordingly we do not never seek feedback in the current awareness service. However, in SDI we try to readjust the user profile, we try to modify the document profile, and we try to match it, and that is another aspect is we also try to seek the feedback of the user, that is another very important aspect of selective dissemination of information. And the another aspect is, another you can distinguish between two services, that SDI is specific service unlike the cache, okay, and that we have already discussed in the previous slide. So, now what do you need to remember? Things to remember when you providing the alerting service, what do you need to remember? It may be provided, the SDI service may be provided to an individual library and the group of libraries, that you need to remember, and it SDI service may be provided at a national level or at an international level, or the poor feedback mechanism. If there is a poor feedback mechanism when you are providing a selective dissemination of information, you are actually compromising the quality of the service. So, that you need to keep in mind seriously, that you need to seek a feedback of the user on a regular basis, and accordingly you can improve the quality of the service. So, that is also very important aspect. Cache is not provided against any specific requirement, therefore, scope of the cache is wider, however, the nature of SDI is not. So, this is one another aspect is that in the SDI we also focus mainly on the user profile, however, we do not do so in the providing the current awareness service. So, these things you need to remember, and if you remember these things, I am sure you would be able to provide the very efficient and effective selective dissemination of information service in the lab. And as I already mentioned, two aspects are very important for a successful library professional. One aspect is that you need to understand your user, and that is why in the previous lectures we have studied user studies. So, user studies help us how to understand the user properly. Another aspect is the information you study, whether the information which we have in the library is being used optimally or not, or whether which information is not being used. So, that aspect is also very important, and afterward understanding these aspects, you need to provide a better services in the library, and obviously the alerting service can make a lot of impact, can have a significant impact in improving the functioning of the library and achieving the utmost satisfaction of the user. So, with this I hope you learned a lot today, and with this I thank you very much for your patient listening. Thank you very much.